Kick things off, we've got quite the panel here today. So I'm Hayden. I'm one of the customer success managers here with Inflow. And then on our technical side, I've got Richard Dixon. He'll be kind of leading out the call when it comes to a lot of the technical aspects of this webinar. So we look forward to hosting and getting you taken care of. So Richard, if you wouldn't mind, let's head on to the next slide. So up top, we're going to touch on a couple things real quick before we get into the actual webinar itself, but we'll touch on who Inflow is. We've had a couple changes here recently, a lot of positive growth, so we'll touch on that. And then of course, we'll get into the meat of it, which is the Genesys interactions and call recording webinar. And then at the end, we'll have time for a question and answer session if there are any lingering questions. So Richard, if you want to go ahead and move on. So who are we? It's a good question that a lot of people may have. Richard, next slide for me. So InflowCX, we provide strategic advisory, deployment, and of course, managed services for a lot of our customers utilizing contact centers, unified communication systems, and of course, improving the customer experience as a whole. So we base our process off of a guidance execution optimization for your engagement strategy for customers. So our expertise ultimately spans across the CX, CCAS, UCAS, the WFM and WFO, along with a multitude of other key engagement technologies that we utilize. And of course, I'll demonstrate some of those in an upcoming slide, but ultimately, we provide a vendor-neutral approach to the space of CX technology, labor strategies, and operational effectiveness. This allows us to provide you with the best options and most suitable partner for you and your business without any sort of bias towards a certain company or certain direction. So we work with over 1,000 customers today, mid-market to enterprise organizations, anywhere from 50 to 5,000 users plus we have under our belt, so we can kind of handle quite a lot. 500 contact center installs and growing, along with contact center engagements, and of course over 1,000 unified communication projects to date. So we are really excited to continue to help grow not only for our customers but ourselves. We've been honored to achieve some industry accolades throughout the CX space, from Five9 Sales Partner of the Year to Genesys's Implementation Partner of the Year. And then, of course, most recently, we've been able to become Zoom certified and also RingCentral certified as their implementation partner and support partners as well. So a lot of exciting things happening here at Inflow as we continue to grow on your behalf. So Richard, next slide, we'll touch on a couple of some of our key customers, I could say, but just to kind of show the vast network and who we work with in a multitude of spaces, from individuals like Domino's, Papa Murphy's. I'm a pizza guy, if you couldn't tell, because those two stood out to me, but Stanley Black & Decker. We've also got brands like Enterprise when it comes to hospitality, real estate services like Zillow and Angie. We work in the healthcare space as well with Health IQ, and then of course the finance space as well. So SoFi, Penn Mutual, Mass Mutual, and many other customers that aren't listed here. But ultimately, the nice part is we've got the experience and the knowledge to touch on every industry, no matter the vertical that they're in. So Richard, we'll move on to the last slide here. We'll talk about some of our tech partners and who we work with, just to give you a sampling of some of our experience. So on the CCAS side, for your contact center, we work and partner with individuals like Genesys and Five9, along with some of the up-and-comers like UJet, Twilio, and of course the Avayas and TalkDesks of the industry. For the UCAS side, for your phone systems, we do a lot with RingCentral and Zoom. And of course, we still work with the 8x8s, the Teams, Dialpads, Fuses, you name it. We can work with all of them. And then, of course, the best thing that we can do here is we also help enhance your CX ecosystem as well. So we are working alongside multiple verticals from WFM and WEM, AI and agent assists, along with other verticals such as automation, knowledge management, surveys, etc. So your playvoxes, your call miners, your replicants, call journeys, all of the above. We really use all of these companies to help increase your effectiveness within your system. So as I kind of transition that over, what we'll get to touch on today a lot of is going to be the interactions and call recordings for Genesys. And for that, the best person to do so is going to be Richard Dixon. So Richard, I will let you take it from here and give the audience what they came for.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Richard Dixon. I've been with Inflow about 2 years now. We're going to go over the interactions and call recordings to kind of take a high-level overview of most things and then how to access them. So in order to access the interactions, you'll have to have a couple prerequisites first. First, you'll need to have analytics, conversation, and view assigned to you, as well as conversations, communications, and view, recordings, recording view, permissions recording, or the segmented recording permissions view. So all of those have to be in place before you even have the option to be able to view this. So if you're trying to allow employees to be able to do this, these are the actions that'll have to be in place for them to be able to have it. After that, and this is a recent change to Genesys for those that have been using it for a while, they have recently made some changes to the system. And the way to access the view now is by clicking on performance. You'll see the little triangle drop down there where I have number 1 listed. You drop down and you'll have workspace available. After you open workspace, then you'll find the option to be able to click on interactions. So after you click on interactions, it'll add another block where you see workspace at the top there. You can actually have multiple tabs to really customize your initial view coming into it, to be able to really organize everything the way you want as far as customization goes. So typically, if I'm running, since I work the queue here, to be able to support myself and to be able to support everybody else, I have interactions so I can see who's calling in as well as queue activities, but we'll go over those another time. Once you do click on interactions, you have a couple fields that you can choose from. Most of the time, you're going to want to choose the date and time. A lot of times we'll do today. That way you can see the most current data. Or if you need to go back in time and see, hey, we had a call a while ago that somebody was complaining about, we want to be able to look that up. You also have columns and filters. So under the filters view, you can see there is a large amount of options here for me to be able to filter out a lot of data that I don't necessarily need, because it's going to give you everything that's possible, but you want to cut it back to be able to make it usable. So in a situation like, well, I know that, let's say Sally had a bad call a couple weeks back. We don't exactly remember what day it is, but we know what week it was. We have a rough idea of what the time was. So I'm able to look that up using the filters. So what I would do in this situation is I would scroll down through my filters list here and find the user. I would type in the user. I would also use by the date and time filter to be able to search and find that aggregate of time. So after I do that, then I can go, okay, was it an inbound or outbound call? So there's a lot of options here, and every option that you choose outside the normal standard default, which is what you see selected here, other than the conversation duration plus 5 minutes, that's going to basically create a bubble. As you can see, the conversation duration 5-minute time here, I can select that or remove it as necessary. So if I go, well, I think it was a 5-minute conversation, but I'm not really sure, I put that in there. And if I'm not finding that call, then what I can do is go ahead and hit the X on that, and that'll automatically get rid of it and give me back to all the data available so I can search a little bit better. Columns, on the other hand, gives me an option to have my view customized the way I want to view it. That way I can get as much data that I need as necessary. So let's say I'm working as a supervisor in this situation, and I want to be able to see who hasn't answered calls, who's been alerted to a call but no answer. I can set a column up in this to be able to view that. There is a caveat to that. The column that is produced, it'll give a number, but that number isn't always 100% accurate. So that may be somebody was alerted to a call, but they didn't answer it. So let's say your alert time is 3 rings, but that customer hangs up within that 3-ring time frame. It's going to show an alert but no answer because the customer hung up in that case. So you'd want to look at that individual call as opposed to just going off the data and going, oh, there was somebody that didn't answer a call in that situation. So it gives you kind of a broader field to be able to look back and really track down the data of, did this person actually avoid the call in that situation, or was it that somebody hung up before they had the opportunity to answer? So there's a ton of options here. It's really customizable. That's one of the large benefits of this, is you can really choose the data that you want to be able to view. So the details tab, once I find an interaction that I want to look at, there's a couple things that are really important for support on our side. If I need to look at an interaction to find out what's going wrong. Hey, there was a call, but we had no audio on it. Well, it's going to actually show this here if we set up the call recording. In this case, you'll see that there's a waveform that has 2 splits in it. So this is a waveform that has the dual availability here. So I can see what person was talking and what audio was, and even mute each one of those individual audios to be able to determine what's going on. Other important information that would be able to pass along is the interaction type. It's going to tell you what type of call, and the interaction ID. The interaction ID, you'll notice that has a little blue copy, like page next to it. That's the interaction ID that we'll need if you call in for support when you're providing information going, hey, we had a bad call in this situation. This is the information that Inflow will need in the situation to be able to help support. It'll give you the start time, the end time, the duration of the call, who called, and any interactions with it. If you notice in the upper left-hand corner where it says internal and multiple calls, that means multiple people interacted with this. If you click on the timeline tab, this will give you a really good breakdown of the timeline for each segment of that call. So in this case, this call was called in from Evanston. It hit the IVR down in Lubbock. After that, it hit the ACD, and you can see how long they interacted with that. And then it hit an agent. Well, it didn't hit that first agent. It alerted the first agent. Until you see the interaction portion of it, like you see in the second line after that, that they alert an interaction and a wrap code, that indicates that that person actually took the call, communicated with the individual. And if they were able to hear them, or if they weren't able to hear them, we would be able to then look at this data, take the call recording, and be able to check it out from there. You also have transcript and audit trail. So the audit trail is going to tell you who has looked at these calls and made any changes to them. So with the voice transcript, if it is configured correctly, we have the ability to actually have it out in a text format of what the call was. So the transcript tab provides the speaker with the separation of the transcript from the conversation external to the customer of IVR agent, participants as well. The transcript provides the insight what works for the interaction, allowing the user to uncover business problems as well as areas of opportunity. Other things that are important with it, voice transcript is not available in all support languages, so it's not available to all of them. And the language model is based upon voice transcript capacity is based on the context center conversations. As a result, it's best suited for those type of conversations as opposed to trying to do a transcript of just a general conversation back and forth. When we're looking at the conversation transcript, you can see the key here. It has a bunch of different icons to be able to identify who is talking during that time when we're viewing that. There's a couple other prerequisites to be able to view it. You have to have Genesys Cloud 3 license, a Genesys Cloud voice BYOC or telephone connection, and then voice transcript has to be enabled. This is what it's going to look like. So once it is created here, we can see that we have the customer at one, and then they have a bunch of different conversations here. This is just a fake conversation that they have, so it's not going to make a lot of sense. But you can tell if you have the sentient set up in here that it will give positive or negative events that are going on with it to help kind of allow you to review the calls and go, all right, these are certain areas that we can work on with one of our agents. So how to enable call recording in Genesys. So there is a prerequisite for it. You have to have the telephony, plugin, and all permissions in order to be able to add this to it. So you'll go into admin under telephone, you'll go into trunks, and under trunks, you'll go to external trunks. And from that list, you're going to choose whichever trunk that you want to configure this on. Then you go into a media, and under media, you're going to have recording line. There's a couple other options that are available with it. If you want to allow recording to a consultation between an agent and supervisor, you need to enable the constant live recording. If you want to have the level volume on both sides of the conversation, enable automatic level control. If you want to have the recording to continue on an external transfer, you'll have to also enable an external bridge transfer. From the audio format list, you need to select the audio path that you want to use for recording. If you want to record both sides of the conversation, kind of like what we saw earlier, where it had a dual band in that situation where it was broke apart each one, you have to enable the dual channel. And if you're required to adhere to any regulatory compliances, you'll want to set the consent to required, or the set consent required to enable, and then configure beep tone as well. That way people are aware that they're being recorded in that situation. So this is a view that you're going to see once you go into the trunk settings. You can see that we've chosen different preferred codecs in this situation, as well as being able to enable it. And this one, you'll see that dual channel is not enabled. You would just click to enable it. It's a very easy click to enable or disable, depending on which you want to have. So dual channel recording, as we were seeing it earlier, where it's split into two different audio streams, it allows you to really be able to diagnose and go, all right, cool, we can set a audio path for just one person. So I can really just listen to the conversation from the customer side, or I can listen to it from the agent side to see what was recorded and what wasn't. It does help with there's an audio issue for one way or not. I can hear it in that situation that the customer is saying hello and that the agent is saying hello, but they're not able to hear each other. It makes it very easy to diagnose in that situation. So if you do want to record both audios, you have to have or use the transcribe portion of it. You must enable the dual channel. The dual channel is only available if you select one of the following formats, so it has to be available in those. When you enable the dual channel setting, it leaves each channel for the recording as a separate stream. So the system uses audio channel 0 to save the external participant recording and audio channel 1. So if you're automatically exporting this, there is going to be two separate audio channels. In this case, it is not a combination one. So it's going to be two separate audio streams. So that's the big difference between having the single line audio recording versus the dual line audio recording. It is saved separately. So to protect the recordings from deletions for a legal hold, so if I need to protect a recording that I don't want it to disappear for some reason, I don't want somebody to accidentally delete this because there's either a legal hold or we really need to save this conversation, what you want to do is go into Genesys, go into performance, into interactions, and identify the interaction that you want to set it as. You want to select all the interactions in the row header and then protect recordings or release recordings button. So that gives you the ability to protect or release it. When you do release it, it will then go back to the adherence that you have for the time frame of how long you want to retain it. So if the retention period was 120 days and this is now day 300 and you release it, then it's going to apply that and delete that recording afterwards. So that's something to be aware of. You'll also want to save the name to this to make it easier to find the product for interactions later. In the recorded information section, check the box for protected, and it should display with that locked icon to inform everyone that this is protected. And when you protect it, lock interactions recording column also displays the protection, but it also applies to any further conversation in that situation that is applied to that interaction. So if there's another email that comes in, with that interaction, it is then still protected. There's also prerequisites available for that. So you also need to have the recording, protected recordings from deletion and apply permissions, as well as protected recordings from deletions, revoke permissions. You have to have those in order to be able to invoke that protection. So we have screen recording as well. There is multi-monitor screen recording. In order to have the multi-monitor screen recording, you have to have a screen recording policy, as well as the Genesys Cloud application. So for the browser, it will record a screen, but it will not multi-record. The only multi-record option is for the Genesys Cloud app, and it's not supported on Windows 7. So screen recording, in order to do that, there's a prerequisite. You have to have analytics, conversation, detail, view, permissions to assign to any user, as well as recording screen record view assigned to any user. So if you're viewing a recording that has multiple monitors, you can select one of them. So if you go back to this view here, if I want to focus on one of these screens, since I have multiple in this situation, that's normally how I run 3 screens. It gives me the availability to be able to view a bunch of different options. So if I need to focus in on whatever one they're working on, if I just click on that screen, it will focus that, bring it up, and allow me to view the other two at the same time, but it'll have that as the focus screen. When you do have the availability for it and it's on there, it'll view in that interaction as a screen recording playback, and you just click view recordings. In order to download a recording, there is some prerequisites as well. And you have to have the analytic conversion detail permission to assign any role user. Screen recording, it's basically the same exact options. The only thing that needs to be additional to it is recording, screen recording, download permission role needs to be assigned to that user. At the top of the playback, you'll be able to download it, and the screen recordings are in web format. Any questions about all this?
Awesome. Well, Richard, I really appreciate appreciate you going through all of that. It was incredibly helpful. I can tell you I learned a couple of things, especially from my side of the business, so this was wonderful. If anyone does have any questions, you are more than welcome to go ahead and put them in the chat. Richard, if you can move to the next slide. The other way that everyone can get in touch, if there are any questions that come up after the fact, please feel free to get in touch with us. You've got our number here with the 844-446-3569, but also contact at InflowCX.com. Great resource. Feel free to reach out to us with any questions you may have. We're more than happy to pass along any resources, videos. We can also set up any demos that may need to be set up as well. So just want to say thank you everybody again for attending today. This webinar will be available on our website at some point in the near future. So there will be a copy of that there as well. But if you'd like a copy yourself, feel free to email us, contact at inflowcx.com. Thank you again to Richard for hosting and participating in this and leading us through. And this has been your webinar on the Genesys interactions and call recordings. Thank you very much, everybody.